Hello guys, welcome back to the channel, and this is my reaction video, nighttime edition. It's a little bit of an ASMR kind of vibe, but we're gonna be watching How to Write an Alien Protagonist by Pey Talks Anime. It just seems like an interesting video, so let's get right into it. And this is like my new section of the reaction videos, where it's kind of like ASMR at night and just me reacting to videos at night, in which this is actually my natural setting in which I'd watch these kinds of videos, so you're getting to see this, my life and whatnot. So let's get into this.
So I released a video talking about this new budding archetype in anime, something I call the quote-unquote alien protagonist. Characters that in many ways act opposite from what you would expect from a main focus in the show. Most writers aim for a protagonist that pretty quickly is relatable, charming, and easy to root for. Most stories' initial primary focus is actually selling the audience not only on the world and story, but the main character. This archetype of an alien protagonist seems to be a lot more common lately, and it's being done really well. So in today's video, I want to talk about how you write a character that goes against all the conditioning that audiences have for what a protagonist should be.
I might want to write
and today we're talking
a character
about my
like
new
that.
favorite archetype.
I might want to write
About
a character
year ago,
like that.
I made a video talking about how I thought there was a surge in fantastic female protagonists. In arguing my points, I covered 4 different characters that I think exemplified this. I used each one individually to point at specific components of what made all of these characters great. And today we'll be doing the exact same thing, looking at 4 alien protagonists that I think are outstanding for many different reasons, focusing on how they work so well despite subverting a lot of common expectations with writing. We'll be covering 4 major points. 1. Why make an alien protagonist in the first place?
Why do that?
2. Contrast is key.
Contrast?
3. Weird can be charming, but it takes time. And 4. This archetype is filled with trade-offs. Each of these points will be paired with a character that I think embodies all of them. But we should start first with defining an alien protagonist. I use this term to refer to characters that fall outside of the norm of what you expect when it comes to storytelling. Traditional protagonists are easy for audiences to empathize with and root for. While stories' introductions try to hook audiences to care about things like the plot and world, the most important priority is the characters, and specifically the main character. So an alien protagonist is one that is weird, where it takes time for audiences to empathize with them because of their abnormalities. Sometimes they're played as anti-heroes or villain protagonists, but other times they're some of the best heroes you've ever seen in fantastic stories. So let's start first with someone that walks that line. Denji from Chainsaw Man. Writers love a tragic backstory, but protagonists tend to be given significantly more positive traits than negative ones. As stories have introduced more and more extreme foundations for a character, it feels like we've rarely explored how messed up that character could potentially be. Denji from Chainsaw Man is a perfect example of the inverse. The street rat that does everything he can to survive. We've seen this street rat archetype in the past, but they tend to be heroic, kind, capable. But very rarely are these characters socially stunted and uncanny. But Denji feels like a feral child.
I relate to Denji heavy.
In brutal circumstance with no opportunity and a huge amount of violence. One that's mostly focused on survival, and because of that, very underdeveloped. Which leads to the 2 major components on why I think alien protagonists are becoming more popular. Number 1, they're different. Number 2, they bring texture to the story. As storytelling norms are more rigorously adopted, it creates room for people to come in and do something new. The same thing done time and time again becomes monotonous and predictable. And not only that, weird characters have tons of interesting ways they can engage with the story. Often when analyzing media, it's easy to try to put each component of the story in a silo, isolated from the things around it. But in reality, each part of a story makes up a single thread in a tightly woven braid, built off of and influencing one another to create a whole product. So when alien protagonists are crafted well, it changes the entire trajectory of a story. Some discovery writers talk a lot about how the story will tell you where it wants to go. And I think that's true of character arcs and plot. Chainsaw Man is fascinating, and at the center of that is Denji, a character that I feel like I've never seen before. It's compelling and fresh and adds a lot of texture to the story, things that catch you. Little moments.
Guess I'm gonna make a character like Denji.
like him grappling with this idea of what's the point of living beyond just surviving? What's a valid dream for someone to have driving them towards an end goal? How might a young, underdeveloped teenage boy equate things like sexuality with closeness and relationships? Every single Alien protagonist I'm talking about today are fundamental for making the story that they're part of feel so unique. They are the catalyst and perspective in which the plot unfolds, and because of that, they heavily influence the audience's experience. In the past couple weeks, I've talked a couple times about how battle shonen is an incredibly popular genre. Shows like Demon Slayer revisit the classic archetype that we associate with battle shonen, but part of the reason it's such a hot topic is because it's so predictable and cliche. For people who haven't seen a bunch of battle shonens, it's new and exciting. But with those familiar with the genre, it's easy to see what's coming next, without really offering much that feels new. Whereas Chainsaw Man is the exact inverse. And the point here isn't actually even to argue that Chainsaw Man is objectively better than Demon Slayer.
It is,
more
but
so that it's doing something that feels different. In 10 years from now, this alien protagonist might fill that same cliche and be oversaturated, essentially antiquating one of the main appeals to it, which is that it's innovative. But the second part still stands.
Innovative.
Even if this becomes formulaic, they'll still have tons of quirks and unique personality in the fact that they're weird. Each one of the protagonists we're exploring today actually feel very different from one another. There's this quote I've heard some people say, which is that art is contrast. Contrast can do a lot to help a story, and the way I like thinking of it is as a multiplier. If you want something to feel louder than it is, set it up with quiet. And I think with alien protagonists, what surrounds them is a very important component of making them work. Take for example, the namesake of Mob Psycho, Mob. He's very purposely made to be simple and boring, but he's paired with incredible capability and intense power as a psychic. Mixing this unique, unconventional personality of the protagonist with a clear capability and power makes for fun contrast. So compelling, actually, that One Punch Man, written by the same author, was built off of that entire premise. Saitama is another outstanding alien protagonist, but the reason I chose to talk about Mob is because if you look at the characters surrounding him, there's a lot that enhances his character and makes it work so well. The three most obvious examples of this are Dimple, an evil spirit trying to manipulate Mob, Teru, another egotistical psychic who's humbled by Mob, and Reagan, Mob's fake psychic teacher. These three characters are so expressive, with fun limitations that tie in beautifully with Mob's personal character arc. Mob has solidified himself for many people who've watched the show as one of their favorite characters. But it's a slow start.
I wouldn't say all that. Mob Loki kind of pisses me off, but whatever.
So it's really important when writing an alien protagonist to remember that they need to be balanced by those around them in stuff like the setting, plot, and characters. Contrast will enhance their benefits and cover up the deficits. And while all the protagonists that I'll be talking about today are fantastic.
Okay, I get it. So for Mob's bland personality, the crazy wackiness around him makes up for that. Yeah, I can see that.
Fantastic characters, it's hard to imagine any of them working without all that proper setup and support around them. It's also really important to point out that Mob is so far away from being a boring character, even though he's initially presented as one. This delayed connection is one of the components of all of these alien protagonists that we're talking about today, but we'll focus on that a little bit more in a second. Avoiding spoilers, Mob's character arc, even across something like the first season, is really beautiful. He's an almost all-powerful psychic, but that strength doesn't really offer much. His main priority as a middle school kid is to find something he's passionate about, which leads to all these fascinating little moments. Like, because his psychic powers are so strong, he's overly relied on them, and that's limited him in many other scopes of life. And he decides to join a fitness club. The contrast of this character between the mundane and fantastic is really cool, and it's exaggerated by how unique he is. Obviously reminiscent of someone like Saitama, but still unique in the grand landscape of what we expect from protagonists. And it works so well, not only because of the contrast in his character, but also the characters that surround him. So a trait a lot of protagonists have is charm. But in reality, how charming a character is kind of nebulous and hard to place, a little bit individual. It's a mishmash of all these different traits that draw you to a character. Now, something I've seen people point out in the comments of my last video that I think is important to clarify is that I'm not arguing these characters aren't able to be empathized with or aren't charming. What they are is breaking away from commonplace. Something I see echoed time and time again with alien characters is how often people for the first time see themselves in a protagonist. Beyond just enjoying a character, but feeling a deep connection. Now, I'd also guess that most of those people, like me, wouldn't really consider themselves very normal. And that's the point, these characters aren't normal. Now, weird characters have a long history of alienating audiences. If people feel too disconnected, it's hard for them to buy in. So kind of like I was talking about with Mob, the weirder a character is, the more that you have to set them up. Because often the same traits that would make a character weird are capable of
But who's to determine like how weird a character is? Who is to determine that? Like if I'm living in a reality and I make a character, right, and to me this character is known, but then when I get other people to read it, they're like, wow, this character is really weird, right? So it's like, it's your scale, right, to see. So I think it's very important that you get other people to read your work so you can get a feeling how weird your character is.
Making an incredibly charming character, but it takes time. A good example of this is Laios from Dungeon Meshi. Before you really have an opportunity to deeply empathize with Laios as a character, you learn just how weird he is.
This guy was moving different. No, but he was funny as hell. No, I'm not gonna lie, he was funny. I don't even put him in the same like archetype as like Denji or Mob, really, but I guess, but like not really. I think this one is a little bit of him as a character, but I guess in a way, yeah. I mean, like in a pure sense, but he seems more socially inept than, Denji or Mob or even Frieren.
And the weird thing about Dungeon Meshi is there's even a step before that where the characters aren't explored in depth for a big portion of the beginning of the story. You slowly find out more and more about how unique this entire party of characters are, especially the lead Laios. But by the time you get to the end of the first season, I think many audience members, me included, would look at Laios as a very well-written, charming character. Passion is interesting, and he has no shortage of passion. He's honest to a fault, trying his best, aware of the fact that he struggled to find a place to fit in. He's weird, and I don't think he'd deny it. Frieren, Mob, Denji, Laios, all of these characters take some time to fully understand. I think general audiences find them a bit enigmatic. But each one, despite falling into this archetype, feels distinct. That's the thing about weird characters. By definition, they tend to be unique, especially if they're written well. So this part's going to kind of overlap with the fourth, because essentially whenever you choose to make any decision in writing, there will be trade-offs. It's like choosing a medium of art to work in. Music and visual art are immediately striking and often cause strong emotional responses, but they tend to have less opportunity to explore a story fully. In writing a book, you can tell any story you want to, but things like action translate less cleanly into words on a page than something like animation. But animation is incredibly time-consuming and hard to put together. Anime as an industry functions on razor-thin margins. With writing decisions, there's similar trade-offs. If you choose to write an alien protagonist, you're putting yourself in a more difficult position to create a character that people can connect with. I think Frieren from Frieren Beyond Journey's End is a really good example of this. She's an everlasting elf that's lived over 1,000 years.
I wouldn't say she's everlasting. She lives a long time, but she's gonna die, so that's inaccurate.
Facing incredibly unique challenges that I could never relate to. But also, the apathy that she experiences in her own journey becomes this really beautiful parallel for people to project their own apathy onto, without a story being too preachy.
Honestly, I can get why elves are cold, because like you live so long, like nothing really matters,
Or forced. In creating weird characters, you can touch on some really complex parts of being a human. Things that are both kind of universal and hard to nail down. With enigmatic characters, you can also explore enigmatic parts of life. Alien protagonists are hard to pull off. They need to be properly supported. The story needs to be engaging enough that it isn't carried by the protagonist initially. They take time. And no matter how well they're crafted, there will still be people that don't get it. But obviously the archetype's becoming more popular for a reason. What do you think?
What do I think? I think it was a great video. Great video. Pey Talks Anime. Great video. did we learn? The Denji section was like the archetype is different. Mob Psycho was like unique contrast. This is actually a really great format to think about when I'm writing my character. I don't know. When I write my next character, he might be he or she, probably he, might be like a alien protagonist. Make sure you have other characters to contrast him or her. And then third was like Laos. Make sure he has some sort of like redeeming, charming quality. And then make sure like the free win section was like the trade-offs and whatnot. So yeah, I think this is a really great video, guys. Once again, I wanted to put you on some gold videos, and this is one of them. Especially when it comes to like videos like this is like helpful for me, especially when I want to write a character. Cause I want to write a character like Denji, so this is like helpful. So, because I feel like I relate to Denji, so but like how do I write myself, in like a way that's like 30% myself, 70% Denji, right? So it's like, yeah. Okay, that's the video, guys. Let me know what you thought of this first ASMR video that I made, a reaction video at night. I'm gonna make a lot of these because it's just efficient. So that's the video. Thank you for watching. I'll see you in the next video. Peace.